Hi, welcome to my lab. I have something very interesting for you today, guys. So this is the storm scope. There is a display here, the controller, which is called the processor, and there is also an antenna, which I don't have, unfortunately. I will try to find one, but it is quite expensive. The antenna itself is something like 100 euros. I got these two items for 50 bucks. It is not very expensive. We will do today a teardown of these two items, and tomorrow I will try to make them work. Before that, for 2 minutes, let's have a look on the theory. So I have found a patent dated 1977 here. So I think it is not the first patent for this thing. So the patent is from Ryan and Nicholas Spitzer from Columbus. In the past, they used to work for Dietronics company. So let's see how this thing works. On the top of this page, there is a stroke in time domain, so lighting actually. So you can see that the stroke has a very high amplitude, 10,000 amps or something like that, but the spike itself is very short. The duration of the spike here is approximately 1 microsecond, and there is a decay of approximately 70 microseconds. And there are several strokes like that. So when a stroke is generated, there is a magnetic field and an electric field also. These strokes are detected using an antenna, which is on the bottom of this page. So this is the configuration for the Node device. So now, of course, these things are replaced by a microprocessor in the middle, but the antennas are the same. So we have two loop antennas, which are positioned 90 degrees from each other. So depending on the heading of the stroke, we will have a pulse with different amplitudes across these two windings. And depending on the relative amplitude, the heading can be calculated. It is actually the arctangent of the ratio of these two voltages. So in this figure, these two pulses are fed directly to a cathode ray tube here. These two antennas measure the magnetic field. And there is another antenna, which is called the sense antenna, which measures actually the electric field. And this gives the information of the amplitude of the stroke. And then it is possible to estimate the distance between the aircraft and the stroke. So there is a phasing network, because there is a phase shift of 90 degrees between the magnetic field and the electric field. And in the middle of this page, you have the spectrum. So this is a low-frequency spectrum, because the energy is concentrated during this duration of 70 microseconds here. So I tried to find the service manual of this thing, but I didn't find anything. But I found the installation manual. So in the installation manual, I have something interesting, the pinout of the connectors, which are on this page. So we have the pinout of the processor. So this is the version WX11 and also the pinout of the display. So let's see first the processor. So on the processor we have a connector to the display. We have a connector for the power supply. You can see that the power supply is 10 to 30 volts. The power consumption is 28 watts. And on the rear there is a connection for the antenna, the loop and sense antenna. And there is also a synchro. This synchro is the heading of the aircraft. So this synchro is connected to the vertical gyroscope, because actually the informations which are displayed on the screen are memorized in the processor. But when there is a turn of the aircraft on the right or on the left, the information displayed on the screen should rotate also. So when there is a rotation of the aircraft, there will be a rotation of all the dots on the display. So the display will rotate on the right clockwise when there is a turn of the aircraft on the left. So this is why there is a test of the gyro here. So when you press these two buttons, there will be a message on the screen which permits to test the gyro if it is activated or not. There is here a test button which permits to measure the noise. On the screen, it is possible to display 256 dots. So when 256 dots are displayed, if there is another stroke, the first one will disappear. So on the screen, you have always the previous 256 strokes. So here we have the scale in nautic miles from the center to the outer circle here. So on the left we have off-on switch and forward, and you have a clear button which permits to clear all the dots on the screen. And we have here the brightness of the CRT. And on the rear there is a connector with 20 pins. So this thing can be removed. Let's start the teardown with the processor, for example. Okay, so this top cover is used also for power dissipation. Well, this is not common. Actually, this is an epoxy board. Very interesting and unusual. Okay, so we have two main boards and a daughter board which is attached to this one. So let's remove this one first. So this is obviously the digital board. I will remove this connector. It will be easier. Okay. So as you can see, we have a specific module, and we can see that the reference is erased, but it, with a proper light, maybe it can be possible to read the reference. As you can see, the parts are classic consumer parts. All ICs are in plastic package. This is a classic capacitor, and all ICs are also on sockets. You can check the date code 84. So we have two EPROMs for the code. This is the first revision, revision A. These are 2764, 8 kilobytes on each EPROM. And we have the static memory here, 2 kilobytes. And we have also several ICs, so I need to remove this board. Actually, we have two processors. So we have the processor, SRAM, EPROM, and the same for the second. So we have two programs which run at the same time. So as the clock is divided by 12 for the CPU cycle, the duration of one cycle is 1 microsecond. So on the right, we have small analog stuffs. So we have classic TL082, we have a CA2290, I don't know, and some silver mica capacitors. We have here the vertical and horizontal centering, and we have also the vertical and the horizontal gains adjustment here. And we can see two DACs here. These are probably the DACs which permit to set the position of the dot on the CRT. And this is obvious because we have also the amplifiers here. So this is the purpose of this CPU. But the second one, I don't know, but we have here two specific parts. So there is another DAC here. So we have three 8-bit DACs, and we have also an AD7574. The second board is obviously an analog board. So this board uses, as we can see, plastic socketed ICs. So we have several classic parts. So this is the switch and mode power supply, because we have the classic controller here, TL594. And on the bottom side, we have classic parts, the same op-amp, TL082, CA3290. So we have monostable, LS107, I don't know. And the same part. So this is the quad comparator, classic, an op-amp. This is the TL072. We have two others here. And we have a 555. We have an analog multiplexer here. It is a dual 1 to 4 lines. This is not common, an AD7502. I don't know, I will play the datasheet. And we have another 82, another one, a 72. It is not very complicated. I would like to have the schematic of this thing, but I didn't find anything. but the board itself is well designed. You can see there is no budgies. The routing is very clear. And on this dissipator, we have several transistors from Motorola. You have few diodes, and we have here maybe a thermal sensor which is inserted in the dissipator itself. And there is another small board on the bottom side with, I didn't see, a large coil here. And we have also two electrochemical capacitors. So I don't know the maximum temperature. These capacitors, they are classic 85 degrees. Okay, so I will reinstall the boards and we will see the display. Let's have a look on this CRT display. Okay, I have removed the cover. So we can see the internal construction. So there is a mu metal shield here. So the CRT is here. So as we can see, we don't have power amplifiers for the deflections. So I think that the deflections are electrostatic and the amplifiers should be here. Yes, because it has the horizontal centering and we have the gain horizontal here and vertical here. Actually, we can see that we have two identical things. The test button is mechanically connected to this micro switch. And we have another one here for the clear. And we have these two rotary switches from Greyhill. Okay, we can see the Motorola transistors, MPSA 42. So I think that the deflection plates are here, these four terminals, and the final amplifier should be this one, this transistor, but I'm not sure. Anyway, we have these resistors, 174 kilo ohms. So these are the collector load of these transistors connected to the plates. And here we have the power supply. We have another TL594. Yes, we can see something interesting. So we can see this transformer, and we have one secondary here with two turns. So this is probably the voltage for the heater of the CRT. The problem with electrostatic deviation is that the cathode is at a high voltage, a negative voltage of minus 1 or 2 kilovolts from the plates. So obviously the vertical and horizontal amplifiers are close to the ground. That means that everything which are close to the cathode should be at a high negative voltage. So the unblanking is generally performed using an optocoupler, but sometimes it can use also high voltage capacitors. So you can see that the unblanking input is here, and it is effectively connected to this capacitor. So the unblanking is only an AC coupling. The duration of the unblanking should be short in time. And here we have the high voltage multiplier for the post acceleration. So we have 1, 2,
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 diodes.
And the high voltage, it is written plus 2 kilovolts here for the acceleration anode. It is actually a post acceleration. So this seems to be the acceleration voltage. We have 2 kilovolts for the post acceleration. Okay, and we can see effectively that we have the filament here. It is written, and the cathode here, the focus. And we have another small board. I don't know the purpose of this one. We have the connections of the of the luminosity control. And we have also an astigmatism adjustment. These transistors are probably used as an amplifier or something for the unblanking signal here. Okay, so we have everything. So we have the power supply. We have the vertical and horizontal amplifiers for the deflection plates. Here we have miscellaneous circuits and the high voltage power supply using this flyback switch mode power supply. That's all for this first episode. On next episode, I will try to connect this indicator to the processor device, and we will see if we can display something on the screen. Thanks for watching, and don't miss the next episode. Bye bye.